Welcome to the Two Marketing Moms podcast.
Two women with 50 years plus of marketing
Integrity
experience.
and culture are extremely
You
important.
can still say, I don't know.
Stop multitasking and be present in the
Moms
moment.
have balls, big time.
Welcome to the Two Marketing Moms podcast. We are two women with more than 50 years of marketing and advertising experience between us, and we want to talk about the struggles, the fails, and the wins that we experienced while building our careers, being a boss, juggling work and a home life, and arguably the hardest and yet most fulfilling job, being a mom. This podcast was created for marketing and advertising professionals, especially the up-and-coming marketing stars of the future. We hope these tips, tricks, and advice will help you navigate work and life and get ahead. Well, welcome to the Two Marketing Moms podcast. Today, I have a very special guest, Eurah Lee. Her company is Call Me Social Media Agency. And just let me tell you a little about Eurah before we get into it. She is an award-winning producer and co-founder of her agency. Throughout her career, she's worked with ad agencies and production companies, creating videos and digital campaigns for a variety of brands like NARS, the American Foundation for Suicide Prevention, and État Libre d'Orange. I probably totally did that wrong. She worked her way up from a production assistant to producer in 2 restless years, which we will talk about. And whether she is producing commercials, animated videos, or digital ads, her concepts always revolve around one question: how can we make the viewer feel something? Love that. She believes social and commercial content should be designed to inspire engagement with one another. And lastly, she has always followed one supreme rule throughout her career: the 7 P's of production. Also, love this: prior proper planning prevents piss poor production. From Rosemary Reed, from her first boss.
Yep.
Okay. So Eurah, I feel like you and I were destined to meet.
Yes.
We found each other through the Freelancing Females group in Facebook, which honestly is like this amazing group of women that are there to support each other.
Yes.
It's just like really such a magical group. So you pitched me. I like loved your pitch deck. I was like, this girl, like you and your partner, you got it. So then when we met, we realized we grew up in the same town.
Yep.
And we actually went to the same high school, even though you went there nearly 20 years after me.
Just a few years apart.
Or no, maybe like, a while afterwards. And also very cool that you started your career at RR in DC, where I'm located. And then you moved to NYC to get the experience in one of the, if not biggest, advertising hubs in the world.
Yes, true.
So let's start from the beginning, even though I have so many questions for you.
Okay.
I noticed you had like the most amazing intern experience. And I like, this is one of the things we haven't talked about too much on the podcast, but is so important because I also did too.
Yeah.
And so I want to talk about internships. Like, how did you seek those out? Like, what impact did they have? Let's start there.
Okay. First of all, I just want to start off with saying that mentorship is so freaking important. Like whether it is a high school mentor or wherever you can find guidance, I really think that is where I got my first start. And I had a really great mentor when I was in high school. I was a really bad high school student. I got expelled from school for having, I got expelled from Centerville High School. Can I tell you why?
Yes, I want to know. I have to know.
I had weed in my car and I got expelled. Yeah. So I luckily had a very great mentor at the time who knew that I had potential, even though I was going through this rebellious phase. And he kind of guided me all the way throughout half of my college career too. So when I got into college, when I got to VCU, my mentor really made sure that I knew meeting my professors on the very first day of school, sitting on the first row of the big lecture classes, introducing myself afterwards. Like, even though they seemed very like I'm class pet-ish, it really like for sure boosted my mentality to who I want to become and who I want to be seen as. And I noticed that by doing things like that, little things, introducing yourself, having confidence as a student, um, it really helped shape my career because then I felt confident enough to go out and network. So I think I learned at an early age that networking was like, honestly, the number one thing to getting a job, to excelling your
Yeah.
career. And when I was in college, I was studying broadcast journalism. I thought that I wanted to be a news, like a reporter. And I went into that and I was like, oh, this is just so much like just sad stories and just like heartbreak and, all this and that. And I was like, I'm not about that. Like, I don't want to live in a depressed state of mind and always have to chase stories. Like, I was like, I'm too lazy for that. So I went to this like I one time was doing like a package story on like this like environmental group at my school, and I went with them to like this like workshop in William and Mary. And at the time at this workshop they had this big music hip hop producer come and speak on like environmental stuff, and his name was Malik Youssef, and he actually started out with Kanye West like back in Chicago. And
Wow.
I it was so crazy because when he before he got up on stage to speak, he was like getting off of a phone call and he was like, I'm sorry, does anyone here know Korean, like because I'm talking to a Korean person, I need some help. And I'm Korean, so I just immediately like raised my hand, and he was like, okay, can you come talk to me after this speech? And I was like, okay. And there's like hundreds of students around.
What?
Yeah, it was so weird. And so afterwards I like made my way over to him and I helped him like translate this phone call. And afterwards he was like, I really like you, you're really smart, like do you want an internship with me? And I was like, what the hell, like are you serious? So I followed up and I kept pushing because like my mentor had,
Yeah.
kind of shaped me to keep pushing and be aggressive. So then I got the internship in LA and actually turned into like one of the worst worst and best internships of my life. It was like LA and Hollywood and music industry, entertainment, fashion. I was just thrown into that as like a naive, college person, and I really was just disgusted. I was like, this world, this industry is exactly what it seems like on TV, and I don't want anything to do with this. So that's kind of like how I got my foot into the internship world. But although it was like one of the most, I guess, like eye opening internship experiences for me, like seeing what this Hollywood life is really like, but also being thrown into like producing like clothes. Like I was helping them with a fashion shoot and like booking fashion, shows in New York and LA. Like as a 18, I was 20 years old, like dealing with $50,000 budgets, and I had no idea what I was doing. But I think I learned to just do it. Literally just do
Yeah.
it.
It
Make your
taught you the hustle.
It taught me the hustle. And from then I just kept I had the confidence when I came back and I was like, I could do, whatever I want. So I just was dragged through the Hollywood mud and came back to DC, finished school, and then, got a job. And I knew from then, I was like, I don't ever want to work in LA again.
Well, the thing is, people like don't think about this. Like they don't think about internships in this way. Like it's supposed to teach you also what you don't want to do.
Yeah.
Like it's like a little experiment, which is so
Mhm.
perfect. Who wants to truly experiment once they've graduated college? I mean, that you can, it's just that
Yeah.
stakes are higher.
Hmm.
So, I mean, like you, like I was always going after internships in a very narrow lane. Like, this is what I want to do. I almost feel like, oh, what if I had just done something different
Hmm.
and learned what I didn't want to do?
Yeah.
That is just as valuable.
I think everyone thinks of internships as like if you had a shitty internship, like, oh, that was a bad experience. And it's like, well, what did you learn from it? You learned
Yeah.
that you don't ever want to do anything like that again. And now you have like a better outlook on your road ahead. My high school mentor told me this one phrase that I will never forget. And he was like, sometimes in life we go through speed bumps, and speed bumps, they help you slow down, but they also help you prepare for the road ahead. And I was like, dang,
Wait,
that's
where
like
did you find this mentor?
he was actually a teacher at Centerville High School.
Really?
Yeah, Mr. Waters.
Wait, did
Yeah.
he teach English?
He might have also taught English. When I was there, he was teaching geography.
Oh my
He
gosh,
was
his
like this
name
really
is
tall,
so
bald
familiar.
guy.
Bald guy.
Yeah, really tall, bald guy with glasses.
Oh my gosh, do you still talk to him?
I still keep up with him like every now and then. Yeah, we'll still catch up. He really like, helped me get through this like teenage angst and like, you know, guide me into becoming like a successful career focused woman.
That's amazing. This
I
is
know
like
so many
so
people
crazy.
So
we
many people
probably
thought it was
know
weird.
We probably know so many people in common. It's like wild.
Definitely, we do.
Oh my gosh. Well, okay, so I feel like let's just jump into the more like present day things, like some
Yeah.
of the like we discussed so many fascinating things a few weeks ago.
Mhm.
So okay, I think this is huge. So when I was at GW for college, I interviewed with Ogilvy, New York, and I was
Oh.
thinking, oh, I got to go to New York because that's where advertising is.
Mhm.
And had an interview. I didn't get the job, but like I started to really think about it. Like, what does moving to New York mean? And how would that be different for me? And I just kind of like was like, like I had an internship, a great internship here that like I loved. And I was like, DC, I'm going to stay here.
Mhm.
But I feel like so many people are wrestling with this same thing. Like, what's the difference between the two markets?
Mhm.
Like, what do you like about DC? What made you want to move to NYC? Like, just, I feel like this is something that a lot of people have on their minds.
Yeah, for sure. Well, DC, I think, is the perfect start for any career. It's a smaller market for sure.
Yeah.
So, like whatever industry you're going into, whether it's like marketing or I don't know, cybersecurity, I don't know what else there is. It's kind of like you are the expert in that field, right? And everyone else around you in the DC market will trust you because you're the expert. They don't pretend to know like what you know. But I think the biggest difference is when you get to New York, everyone thinks they know everything about marketing or video production or cybersecurity. It's like, you hired us because we're the experts. Like you hired us because you trust us. Please just trust us. So I miss that about DC. Like I miss people being able to be like, you're hired, do your thing. And in New York, like the clients, of course, you get paid more and the budgets are much higher, the stakes are higher, the production value is greater. So it's a lot more fun. You have more like, I don't want to say freedom. You don't have more freedom in the actual content itself, but you have more freedom to hire, a Jaguar if you want. But I think it's just people in New York think that they can do your job for you, they think that, I know marketing too, I my son's a marketing agency and blah blah blah, so I know that this video should be 6 minutes long. It's like, why should it be 6 minutes long? Like you hired us for a reason. So I guess the main thing about the difference between DC and New York is obviously the pay gap as well. I think when I immediately as I got to New York, my salary doubled. And I didn't, I had the same
Wow.
experience. It was like just within like a month of moving there. But the term more money, more problems is very true. Very, very true. And although I was making more, I had a lot more stress. I had no freedom in the projects that I wanted to work in. I had no freedom in my life, honestly. I was really just
Like, were
slaving
you
away.
working crazy hours?
I was working all the time. And I think that's also another thing about New York is that there is no separation from your identity to your career. You are your career. And that is like New York rules. Like we come here to hustle. Like hustle culture is alive and well over here.
Yeah.
And that's what breaks a lot of people down, and what, you know, a lot of people get really depressed because their entire life revolves around their career. And it wasn't until I got let go from my job that I was able to separate from that I realized, wait, who am I, like, without my career? Who am I without my title? I actually still have amazing experience. I still have all these skills and blah blah blah. I don't need to live my life under this agency that I work for. Um I think that's something that a lot of people struggle with.
I'm sure.
Yeah.
I'm sure.
Uh-huh. And you had something similar. I mean, like when you were working at your past place too, right? Like you just kind of, it took you a long time and you realized that
Yeah.
the mission wasn't the same.
I became I mean, I'm not really a risk taker,
Mhm.
you know? And so, yeah, I wrestled with what should I do when I had one vision for how I wanted to work and the type of agency I wanted to create in terms of culture and the type of people I wanted to hire, maybe the type of work I wanted to do, maybe even like the way I wanted to accomplish the work. And it was like diverting so far from where I was that like eventually I had no choice but to actually take the risk, decide to go out on my own, and and all those experiences, you know, over that long period of time, which was far too long, did give me the confidence to do it. And it was a tough decision to make, obviously. But in the long term, it was really positive. So do you feel like going to New York was a good move?
Yes, for sure. I don't regret it one bit. I think that I had to take this step well, let me first start by saying, I think if I would have stayed in DC, you know, the creative field in DC is pretty small.
Yep.
Everybody kind of knows each other.
Yep.
Everyone fights for the same projects.
Yes, because the big work is not plentiful.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, like if you're in the inner circle of DC ad agencies, you're going to know what other 3 agencies are pitching this work. I mean, it's good and bad, right? Like, you know, your competitive edge or where you're going to fall short or pricing. Yeah. I'm sure it's not that way in New York, right? Like,
yeah, I mean, of course, like New York has their top agencies as well, like Gray, Ogilvy, you know, other places that mainly get the really big projects, but there's still plenty of work to go around, like plenty of work to go around. And I think in DC, like that's not the case. Like everyone, especially if it's like a cool project or like, you know, something fun, like everyone's a cockroach, and will just go straight for it. So I think if I were to stay in DC, I feel like my, I guess, variety of projects wouldn't have expanded. I would have mainly worked on a lot, especially like working at Double R. I mean, Double R was great, but it was a lot of like organizations, like making marketing videos for like associations and like government stuff. And I thought it was really good. Like I had a really good foundation because I could start from like a smaller project. But then moving to New York, I worked on so many different brands, fashion, like makeup, cars, and it was a lot of fun. But I also feel like, and this goes back to what I was saying before, there's a little bit less of creative freedom. And I think that just comes with, it's almost like the more they pay, like, are you willing to give up your creative freedom for a big paycheck?
Yeah. Mo money, mo problems, for sure. Wait, so do you think that if you had gone straight to New York without having that foundation in DC,
Mhm.
like, what's your advice to that person? Like, I feel like it could go either way, right?
Yeah.
Like and like Kelly, my co-host,
Mhm.
she went straight into Gray
Mhm.
and had the most amazing experiences.
Mhm.
But I definitely am much more of a you person, whereas like, let's get that foundation
Mhm.
in a environment that's not such a pressure cooker,
Mhm.
where you can take a little more time to learn things.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then go to that next step. So I don't know. What's your advice on that one?
I would say start small.
Ooh, okay.
Yeah, like do what we did.
Yeah.
If you can stay like after you graduate from school, especially like when it comes to savings, the only reason that I got let go from my recent job and was able to take a month off and then start this company was because I had savings. And I
Yeah.
don't think that would have been possible if I didn't stay at home after I graduated from school for like a year and work at Double R and make some money and start, getting some savings, and that set me up. That
Yeah.
literally set me up for like the next 5 years. So I think that, and also if you start small, you get to put your hands in so many different things too. Like if you
Yeah.
started a smaller company, if you start in a smaller network like DC, you can work as like a production assistant, then work up to production coordinator like quickly. But if you're over at, one of those bigger places, you work in a silo, you're just like
Yeah.
doing this one little thing and everyone's doing this one little thing. And I don't think you get to learn as much as you could if you were working for a smaller company.
Good advice.
Yeah.
So are you ready for another move?
Yes, I am so ready. And I will always even tell someone if they're ever thinking about moving to New York, I would literally be like, why? Why do you want to go there? Like,
So you've become a jaded New Yorker now.
yes, yes. I'm
Oh
like,
my
why do
gosh.
people like this place? Like, I get it because I was totally that girl that was like, I'm a city girl, like
Yeah.
I'm a small town girl, big dreams, like go to New York, get a big paying job, be the world's best producer ever that lived. But and then you come here and you're like, it's so dirty and there's so many people. And I swear you'll become more lazy than ever before because you don't want to deal with those people. You don't want to deal with that stuff, especially if you're working at a high-paced job. Like you just want to go home and relax afterwards. So New York is like, I think it's good to maybe like get a year here, or like
Yeah.
if you want to jump that salary, come to New York and like do something. But I think that this city does a lot to your sanity as well.
Yeah.
Even my anxiety like has gone up, and I just am ready for something new. So I think that Seattle or the Pacific Northwest will really be the next move for me. And have you heard that the Pacific Northwest is like such a millennial move? Have you ever heard of that?
No.
It's
But
like,
my sister moved there.
yeah. And people are like, I see it on the internet all the time, like millennials are moving to the Pacific Northwest. Like, what's up with that?
Well, what's interesting is that when my sister was recruited to go work there,
Uh-huh.
the company that she originally worked for kind of in a way told her that they were looking for someone East Coast to come and really ratchet up sales. And
Wow.
like, reading between the lines, it was like, well, because someone from the East Coast has a different mentality than someone from the West Coast.
I didn't think about that, but that's so true.
Yeah, it was really interesting. And then she helped, create this incredible organization that then got bought up by another organization. She was out of a job.
Oh my gosh. So she did her thing and then she was out of a job.
Yeah.
Wow.
Talk about over delivering,
I
right?
know, right? Jesus.
All right. So let's talk about your roots in production.
Hmm.
I feel like this is a niche part of advertising work because like, for instance, as you were saying, like if you went to go work in New York, like, and you were in accounts, you probably would never get any of your hands, I'm guessing at least, you can tell me if I'm wrong, in any type of production.
Definitely. Yeah.
And I think it's like a really cool thing to know. It's like knowing where your food comes from, you know, it's like, it's understanding the whole creative process. Like from the first time a client comes and has a problem or a challenge to solve. And then, you know, how do you get to that creative brief and that concept and then production and post and all that stuff. So my question for you is, how does knowing production help you in your work now? Maybe your non-production work now.
Well, exactly what you said, that, you know, as a producer and even starting as a production assistant, you see every step of the way from concept to completion. Literally, how was this video made?
Yeah.
And people don't think about, you know, the crew, you know, people also don't think about the talent. People don't think about the location or even like the food for the crew. So I really got to see that everything is done step by step. Another thing that you know, we talked about this last time, is that we can't do this stuff alone. I mean, there's only so much that we can do by ourselves. And it really takes a team of trusted individuals who are experts in that certain thing to get this video done, to get this concept done, whatever it is. So I'm going to hire the best audio guy I know and let him do his job. Like, you do your job, because I don't know that. And that goes the same for the designer or whoever, the talent. Like, everyone has their place in this production, and we all have we're all synchronized in making this one thing come to life. I think another thing that has helped me in the production world with the work that I'm doing now is interview skills. Like, interviewing people and talking to strangers. Like, when I was in broadcast journalism, you literally had to just ask people on the street like random things and really get the answer out of them that you want to get. So when it comes to talking to new clients or talking to current clients and they have like problems, sometimes, like, and I'm sure you deal with this too, people come to you and they say, I have a problem, but I don't really know what the problem is, you know, or like, I don't know exactly how I want to do this. And they're just so like vague. So we have to consistently ask questions, and like literally dig deep down into their brains, into their like souls and hearts, and like figure it out for them, literally figure it out for them.
Yes,
I think
it's so true.
That's like what we're getting paid for, is like, our clients don't know what they want. So we just have to figure it out for them. And the interview skills has helped me to dig deep into what it is they actually want, what it is their actual mission and message is. And then, you know, step by step, using my production skills, make sure that that concept turns into like a tangible or like a content that they want.
And you can now sell anything almost, right? Like when
Sales.
when you get the window into how all the pieces work together, you can more easily sell it.
Because you know it inside out.
Because you know it.
Yeah.
Yeah, totally.
Sales is also a huge thing. I think that was one of the first things that my old boss, Rosemary Reed, told us. Is we had a small team. It was like 6 people. And, you know, one was an editor, one was a production coordinator. I was the producer. We have like interns, whatever. She told everyone, every single person on this team is in sales. Every single person.
So
and
true.
I took that like, so, you know, fearless. I mean, like, I really made sure that like sales was such a big boost for everywhere I went. When I went to my next job at Quirk here in New York, I knew that the first thing I said was, I'm not scared of sales. I'm not scared of networking. I'm not scared to be out there and represent Quirk. Like, that was one of the biggest things that they were like, oh, okay, like, she's about it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hire her.
Yeah. We don't need a biz dev team.
Well, you know, in DC, where the agencies are smaller, you know, people wear more hats. So it's in one way, almost like it's easier to forget that there are people in the agency world that have their, their strengths, and we need the power of the collective to create that. On the other hand, it's great because you get your hands in things. Like, I was just an account manager, but because we had such a small team, I got to be involved in every step of the production. And it was like literally stepping into a world that I never even imagined about, but it was so helpful to see how the sausage is made, I guess you can say.
That's
so
hilarious. But
okay.
Yes,
I want to get to this really good subject.
all right.
Because I feel like you and I mean, as if we haven't connected on everything else, but I want to talk about your decision to go out on your own, because love this topic, because we are living in the gig economy. Like, we are living, I think, in a time like no other, that people can go out and more easily chase their dreams and work for themselves and create that value and sell themselves, be that hustler, there's so many opportunities. I'm personally so grateful for it. And you and I have both done this. So it's like another thing we have in common. So I was thinking about this. I don't like to be called a freelancer. But I mean, it is a title that I own, right? Like, I work for myself. I don't belong to like I'm not owned by someone necessarily. But I feel like I work for myself, so I'm working solo, so I could be an entrepreneur. I also like being called an agency. Probably you feel the same.
Yes.
Since I bring in collaborators on almost every engagement that I have. I mean, I like definitely being called an entrepreneur. So anyways, so talk to me about the factors that led you to creating Kami, because I feel, again, like this is such a subject that people are wrestling with. Like, should I stay or should I go? Should I dip my toe out there? Like, how do you do it? Like, talk about your thought process and like how that happened.
Okay. So I think throughout my career, I've had many people, boyfriend, colleagues, bosses always say, one day you're going to own your own business, or like, why don't you go out and like start something on your own? I think you could really do it. And I never had full confidence in myself. I would always see my previous bosses struggle with sales, struggle with finding new clients, and that shit scared me. I was like, I do not want to lose sleep at night. Like,
I mean, it still
not,
scares me.
I know. Like, I just, and like that to me is the scariest thing. It's just like being able to like maintain revenue and like pay people. So that was honestly my biggest like setback, was that I didn't want to constantly chase new clients. So when I was let go from my last agency back in September 2020, I had, basically went through the 7 stages of grief and was like, my life is over and what was all this for, blah, blah, blah. And
in the middle of a pandemic too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I went through all that stuff, and I also knew that like that's when it hit me that I was actually very depressed at my job. All the stuff that I was working on, I did not feel connected to, and I was kind of thankful, but also, still thinking, what is my life? Where is it going now? Luckily, I had my best friend. She was, searching for a job in the middle of a pandemic as well. She had lost her job in the HR field of like this big law firm in DC. And so she was thinking, have you heard of like virtual assistance companies? Yeah. So
Yeah.
she was
They're
like,
huge.
yeah, there's so many virtual assistants everywhere. And so she wanted to start one of those and do that. And so I was like, oh, let me help you. Like, I have some time now. And maybe, when you like make your own website, you can add me on there as like a marketing consultant and I can help you. and this whole time she was like scheming to get me on board with her, to start it with her. But
Oh,
she knew that like she had to give me some time to like grieve my job and whatever.
yeah.
So she like gave me some time, and then I think like a month, I had a month of like rest and relaxation, whatever, and like thoughts. And after a month, I was like, you know what? Do you want to do this together? Like, let's start this business together. But like you say that you don't like being called a freelancer, I don't want to be called a freaking virtual assistant. Like, I am not a virtual assistant. I am way
Yeah.
more than that.
No.
So I was like, let's turn this into like a marketing agency. Let's turn this into something that like we can actually make good money on. So we formed it into a social media agency. And honestly, the only reason I was able to start this business was I had a partner, my best friend, who was able to say, we can do this together.
Yeah.
Literally, we can do this together. Let's take it slow. Let's take it slow. And what do you have to lose? You have no job right now. What do you have to lose? Let's do
Yeah.
this. And so
Huge.
because I was at the time very frustrated with like other agencies and working for someone else and being let go, and like I was very like screw corporate, screw capitalism. So yeah, I was like super, like fired up from it. So I was like, yeah, let's freaking start this thing. So I think that being let go from my job really gave me the push, and also having someone to like hold hands with
Yeah.
and think, let's do this together, really, really like saved me.
Yeah, I was talking to like this agency. He's kind of like a coach, a business coach for people in the agency world. And he was like, I was telling him about like, growth and how to get to the next step. And he's like, like a lot of people bring in partners because
Mhm.
it is so empowering to just know that you have someone who has your back,
Mhm.
someone who's going to be there when you're down, who then, vice versa, when they're down,
Yes.
you can be the one to support.
Mhm.
You'll figure it out.
Mhm.
I think that's huge.
Yeah. Do you know there's this other podcast called The Future with Chris Do? He's like this Asian guy. He's this like really great graphic designer, and he
Oh,
has he has a podcast. I'll send it to you afterwards.
the
And
future.
yeah, The Future. And he talks about, all different types of subjects, going freelance and whatever. He talked to this one guy, I forget his name, but his name is Jason something, I believe. And he is an agency owner for like a huge agency that is in LA, San Francisco, I think Seattle, and also New York. And he was talking about his experience about like, how he started his agency and like what are like the downfalls and all this stuff. And he said, honestly, he first started his agency by himself, and after 2 years he completely burned out, and he ended it. He ended his agency. He couldn't do anymore. He loved it, but he like literally worked himself to death that he had to just close his agency.
Oh,
And
wow.
then he was able to find three other partners. So it was the four of them. And then they opened up a bigger agency. And from them, that is the one agency with the four partners that has grown so much to four different cities. They
Wow.
get tons of projects, and they're loving it because they're able to like work on it together. So
Yeah.
he was like, doing it on my own was just, way too rough.
Huh. You got me thinking now.
Because you do everything on your own, don't you?
I mean, yeah, I have collaborators that, copywriters, creative people, designer, whatever I need. But yeah, it's lonely.
Mm-hmm.
It's lonely.
And then sometimes you might wake up and just feel so like drained, and you're just like, I just
Yes.
need to sleep like 2 more hours or like something like that. But like you can't. You just have to get up and do it. While
Yep.
like if I really feel like crap and I'm like, I literally just need like 1 more hour of sleep, like please, I will just call my partner and say, I seriously, I'll be on at 10. Like I just can't do it. And she'll be like, go to sleep, like take your time, especially because she knows that I'm like a big bitch when I don't have my sleep, that she's just like, go to sleep, call me back later, go to sleep, I'll take care
Well,
of it.
you know what? Like we ask when we have like the couple of guests we've had on the podcast, like the ones that have been moms, we'll ask them like, you know, how does being a mom make you better in business? And like one of my answers is like, I don't know, when you're a mom, like you just power through stuff now. Like that's one thing. Like I have looked burnout in the face so many times the past like 12 months. And then I'm just like, okay, like sleep it off, get up the next morning, keep going, you know? And like, I don't think I would have done that, you know, pre-kids. Like there was something about becoming a mom and having that responsibility and not being able to like, I don't know, like, you know, I was breastfeeding my kids. There was no other person that could substitute for me, you know? So like, it just turned me into this person that like, I just keep going. So I think whenever I do get really exhausted and stuff, I just go back to that. Like, nope, just keep going. Like get a good night's rest, come back mentally fresh and just keep going. I mean, I don't know. We could probably have a whole episode about that.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think that honestly, like you probably work way harder than I do because you think that like, because you're trained as a mom, like trained with kids, that you think if you come to like a fork in the road, you're like, okay, I could either take like a 20-minute nap or I can like bust this thing out. You don't even think about those options maybe because you're just like, I'm just going to go ahead and bust this thing out. Like that's just
Probably.
it. Well, I will literally be like, you know, just a 20-minute will be fine, you know, like
listen, I don't think it's true that I probably work harder than you. I probably have things that are inefficient because I am so focused on busting that thing out. You know what I mean? And like, I don't look at the alternatives, right? I think every life stage will bring you to a new version of yourself, right? Like you and I both have that in common, like that college experience, like we both found our confidence there and learned things that got us to the next level. And then in our careers, also confidence to the next level. Because let's be honest, like most people we know in the creative industry are not going to go out and work for themselves. Like they are not interested in feeding the beast.
Yeah.
They want to just do the work. And there is nothing wrong with that. That's fabulous.
Yeah.
But you know, like people like you and I just have that. We're just built that way. Our paths took us down that way and we chose to continue on, you know?
Yeah. There is nothing wrong with people working a 9 to 5. And, you know, sometimes I may like throw some shade at them, but I always have to catch myself because I'm like, that was you. And like, there's no hate in the game. You know, everyone is on their own paths. And also, have you heard this one experiment? I can't remember which book it was from, but it was an experiment on chickens and like chickens having eggs, right? So like there's all these they have like the really rowdy chickens and then they have like the chickens who do their job and just like lay the eggs, right? Then they have the crazy chickens that like want to lay more eggs and like lay as many eggs, right? So they did this experiment where they put all the, let's call them the 9 to 5 chicken heads in one coop, right? And they just did their job. None of them died. They just did their job and just like laid the eggs. Then they put all the rowdy chicken heads, all the aggressive ones, all the smart ones in another coop and they all died. So the moral of the story was that basically when you own a business or own an agency, you gotta have both chickens.
Yes.
If you hire all the crazy rowdy chickens, the agency will die because they're all crazy and they will all fight.
It's so true.
But you
it's so
need
true.
the 9 to 5 chickens.
So, okay. So when I get to a Friday on a 5 p.m. or like last Friday, for instance, I was definitely the rowdy chicken that was going to like literally put myself in my own grave. And I was like, okay, you got to shut off so that Monday you can come back and be the not so crazy chicken.
Yeah. Yeah. We have to pull ourselves back sometimes.
Yeah, I know. It's so
Yeah.
true. Okay, so tell me about like since you've started Kami, like what has been your biggest win and your biggest fail?
Biggest win honestly was just starting the business. That was our
Yes, you
biggest
go,
win.
girl.
Yeah, and like obviously getting new clients is always a win. But just starting was just do it. Biggest fail, I was thinking about this and I feel very fortunate that we haven't had any big fails just yet. But I would say our biggest fail is that my partner and I are best friends. So it is a blessing and curse that we live in different cities. So she is in DC and I'm in New York. When we are together, we will drink way too much. We will eat way too much, and we basically forget that we own a business. So that's the fail, that we're best friends and that we do that sometimes. We're like, yeah, wait, we wake up hungover, like we got to go to Chase Bank, and like we'll show up hungover and be like, oh, we need to like deposit this stuff or like whatever. But it's
I mean, you got to have fun along the way.
Yeah, you have to. And it's a blessing that we are best friends and we have such crazy, hilarious humors that we can get through things together by laughing and just having fun. Every day we think, what are we doing? Like we always, what are we doing? But let's just do it. Let's just see where it goes.
Well, there you go. Like as a perfect like juxtaposition to like mentors are so important. It's also so important to find like those kindred spirits that you can not only be friends with, but you can work with, that you have like this sometimes like magical synergy, like where you're thinking the same thing as each other and you can, each person brings that puzzle piece to make it together. Like,
yes,
that is also so important. Like, I think a lot of people, maybe not recent grads, but like there was probably a day where like graduates came in, it was like every person for themselves. Like, we don't need to form bonds or have relationships or whatever. I'm just going to all about me. And that's like, I don't know. No, don't do that.
Yeah. I totally agree. And I think I was so surprised at like how supportive the small business community / like community is. Just everyone's so supportive. Like, look at me and you. Like, we're basically, we should be competing over projects, but look at us doing a podcast together. And like, I think that we level each other up because that's what we're supposed to do in this community. That's the whole reason for small business, is that we should support each other and make sure that the money is being funneled throughout everyone. That's really the biggest goal of mine.
That's what I love about like the freelancing females group, is just like, everyone just shows up for each other.
Yes.
Like total strangers, but just, if you help me, I help you, we all win. I love that.
Yeah. It's just like, I got you, sis. Like, we're fam.
I know. All right. So last question. What would you say to your peers still working for an agency that may be considering, like, should I go out on my own? What would you say to them?
If they're thinking about if they should go out on their own.
Yeah, they're like, I don't know if I like this 9 to 5. Like maybe I should, work for myself. Or maybe they're thinking I should become a freelancer. Like, what a great gig. What would you say?
I think that if you're thinking about it, then you have to do it, because you're just going to be thinking about it until you retire. And do you want to?
Good point.
Yeah, like if it comes to mind, then it needs to be done. And I also know that it's very hard for people to think about life without a paycheck. A lot of people can't make that decision, and their setback for not going out on their own is that they might not have enough savings to like hold
Yeah.
them over for the next few months, or
True.
they need to make sure that their side business is making X amount of money before they leave their 9 to 5, which is totally understandable. Like you have to look out for yourself because no one is going to look out for you. But just coming from my own experience, that if the entrepreneur world is meant for you, those opportunities will come for you. Like just make the decision and
Yeah.
everything else will follow. Everything else will follow. You just have to make the moves and consistently make moves. You can't just sit around at a desk and wait for clients to come for you. No, it's not going to work like that. You have to at least put in a little bit of work, but it will come. And I think that we just have to, in the end, trust the world that if it's in our path, it will be there. That sounds so like,
that is like the most beautiful, like, just let's stop right there.
but I'm sure people are like, ill, shut up. Like, what about money? But like,
No,
I
it's
really
so true.
believe that like, if it's meant for you, it's going to come. Like when you make the decision, it will always be the right decision. You will never make a wrong decision.
Totally. I mean, when I left my last job, when I finally came to that decision, the day that I left, or the day I said I was going to leave, I really had no plan.
Mhm.
I just trusted that that I was going to make it happen.
Mhm.
Once I closed that door and then stepped in through another.
Yes.
And I was so lucky. Like I have a background in sales and never truly wanted to do sales, but here I am, like the main salesperson. And like 45 days later, when I left to be on my own, I already had jobs lined up. I had been networking. I had been doing all the things that I hadn't necessarily thought about 45 days earlier. But like, I think your advice is spot on.
And you believed in yourself.
Yeah. I was just like, I'm going to do it.
You were like, I don't know what's next, but I believe in myself and I trust the world. So that's all you have to do.
And I didn't sit at my desk just waiting for things. Like I went out and started making them happen. Like just did things like organically, reached out to people that I knew, had conversations, like started to think about all those things. Yeah.
And I also believe that sometimes you have to shed some things from your life to make room for more things, right? Like even in your home, like physically, but also mentally. And like, you need to shed this 9 to 5, or you need to shed this job that you don't like in order for the new opportunities to come. Because right now there's no room for it.
Yeah. Like the side hustle may never be bigger than it is.
If it's always seen it's a side hustle.
Yeah, because you're ultimately focused on that, on your job right now. So if you want to make that side hustle, something to consider is, what is the potential of that once I can put 100% of my attention and focus and energy towards it?
Yes. Agreed.
Love it. Oh my gosh, Eurah, like before you go West Coast, you've got to come down here.
I know.
So like we can meet in person.
I know.
All right. Well, with that, we're going to sign off, but thank you so much, Eurah.
Thank you for having me. This was so much fun. And I got to learn more about you, and that the mom life is actually, it sounds good to me.
Ooh. Well, it's not all roses, but there are some positives. All right. Bye.
All right, Julia. Thank you. Bye.
We hope you enjoyed this episode. If you liked what you heard, please leave us a podcast review or send us a message at twomarketingmoms.com, and subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. Until next time.